Welcome back to For Your Heart and Home. My name is Dee Dee. Welcome into my kitchen. In the first episode of this Pantry Staple Series, we made a Jamaican-style green lentil and chicken soup using half of a whole chicken, stretching pantry staples into a nourishing, comforting meal. Today, we're continuing the same rhythm of intentional cooking by using the rest of that chicken to create something entirely different, but just as satisfying. A simple braised chicken served with fried green plantains and a pan of cornbread. This is what pantry cooking looks like in real life. One ingredient thoughtfully used across multiple meals. When grocery prices rise, it's not just about finding cheaper food. It's about cooking smarter. Learning how to plan meals that build on one another helps reduce waste, stretch your budget, and ease the mental load of daily cooking. That whole chicken we started with wasn't just dinner, it was a plan. Today's meal feels hearty and generous, but it's still rooted in the same principle: using what we already have and using it well. In my previous video, I shared that I was making Jamaican soup, and so this is the remainder of the chicken, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to use that today to make a braised chicken. I'm going to start by seasoning the chicken and putting it to the side, let it rest for 20 to 30 minutes while I chop my vegetables, and then I'll be putting it in my cast iron pot to braise it. This chicken has already been washed and cleaned, and so now it's ready to be seasoned. Like I stated before, for this dish, I'm using the remaining pieces of the chicken that weren't used in the soup, which is perfect for braising. Braised dishes are especially well suited for economical cooking. They don't require premium cuts, just time and patience. Slow cooking allows a chicken to become tender and flavorful even when working with simple seasonings. This is the kind of cooking that transforms humble ingredients into something that feels abundant. I'm going to work the seasoning into the chicken and set that aside for about 20 minutes. The next thing I'm going to do is to get my vegetables ready. I'm going to wash everything, remove the skin, chop it, and get it into my skillet. All right, everything is chopped and ready for the skillet. So my chicken has been resting for about 20 minutes, so I'm going to start by lightly browning the chicken pieces. This step adds depth and richness without adding cost. Once the chicken is browned, I add the aromatics. I'm going to put some onions, some green peppers, some tomatoes, and some carrots into the pot and allow them to soak in all of those bits that the chicken left behind. I'm going to let everything soften and become fragrant. So as you can see, I put the chicken in to let it brown and then I remove it from the pot. I allow the seasonings and the greens to soften, and then I'm going to return the chicken to the pot. Any juices or liquids that were spilling out of the chicken, I'm going to put back into the pot. This browning process is not to cook the chicken thoroughly, it's just to give it a little bit of color. I'm going to put the lid back on and keep the heat low. You can do this in two ways. You can do this on top of your stove and just allow it to simmer in your pot over several hours, or you can put it in the oven. I'm going to be putting my pot in the oven and then finish it off there. Braised meals don't ask much of us. It's just time. And in return, they give us food that is comforting and deeply satisfying. Okay, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I've had this grinder and this is what I've been using to process my wheat berries, and then after a while I got my Nutrimilk Harvest. I still have this grinder and I use it for grinding things for spices and other things like that. Today I'm using it to grind up some cornmeal. So I bought this cornmeal, but it's a little bit too coarse. And so when I go to make cornbread, for example, it comes out a little bit too gritty. So I'm using this to turn it into a more powdery form of the cornmeal that will give me a smoother texture in the finished product. As you can see, this is very powdery now, and this is perfect for making some cornbread for dinner. I also need a cup of hard white wheat berries for these cornbread, so I'm going to just use this since it's already out. As you can see, it works really well for milling my hard white wheat berries. There are just a few extra steps in comparison to when using my Nutrimilk Harvest, but this is still a very powerful machine and it works really well.
So now I'm going to make some cornbread for dinner. I have 1 cup of hard white wheat berries and 1 cup of cornmeal, both finely milled.
It's a simple cornbread recipe, very straightforward. Cornbread is one of those quiet staples. It's made with basic pantry ingredients, but always welcome at the table. It fills plates, stretches servings, and turns a simple meal into something that feels complete. There's something comforting about pulling cornbread from the oven while a pot simmers on the stove. It's familiar, grounding, and deeply home-centered.
I will not be using any milk, and so I'm adding a little bit extra fat to the mix. I'm upping the amount of oil, and I'm adding an extra egg. So I have about 1 cup there. And then I just added some water, so I will see if I need any more liquids after this. Always nice to add a splash of vanilla. Alright, the last thing I have to do to get this dinner together is to make some fried green plantains. Green plantains are the cousins to bananas. They're bigger, they're starchier, and they definitely cannot be eaten raw. You can fry these or prepare them in other ways when they're green, and you can do it when they're ripe. I'm going to use them in their green state. I'm going to remove all of the skin, and then I'm going to do like a twice fry. I'm going to fry it first, and then I'm going to mash it, and then I will fry it again to make sure it's cooked completely. First, I cut off the top. I use my sharp knife and I go down the middle. I usually use gloves for this because it's starchy and it's going to get my hands messy, so I'm going to actually put some oil on my fingers. Then I'm going to take my fingers and just slide the skin off. Here you go.
Green plantains are affordable, filling, and widely available. They store well and add substance to a meal without relying on expensive ingredients. Sliced and fried until golden, they bring a savory balance to the richness of the braised chicken. This is a side dish that stretches the meal and adds variety without complication.
Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to put them into chunks and get them into my shallow pan.
When the chicken is tender and the sauce has deepened, everything comes together. The braised chicken, the fried plantains, and the warm cornbread. So my chicken needed more room in its pot, so I actually turned it out into a baking dish after it was browned in the oven for a while to give it more room to stretch out and to allow me to add the chopped potatoes to the dish as well. There was just not enough room for everything to fit, so I switched it to a casserole dish. Everything fit well and cooked thoroughly. This meal feels and looks generous, yet it's built entirely on thoughtful planning and simple ingredients. One chicken, 2 different meals, and there was no waste. We highlighted pantry staples like cornmeal, something that gets tucked in the back since we don't use it as often, but it can be used to create something warm, inviting, and comforting. Cooking this way reminds us that abundance doesn't always come from more. It often comes from using what we already have with intention. When we slow down and plan meals that build on one another, we not only save money, we create rhythm in the home. Meals become connected, purposeful, and rooted in care. This kind of cooking has sustained families for generations, and it still works today. So this is episode 2 of the Pantry Staple Series, where we're learning to stretch ingredients, build skills, and cook in ways that truly serve the home. If you missed episode 1, I encourage you to start there. You'll see how one whole chicken became the foundation for multiple nourishing meals. Thank you for spending this time with me in the kitchen today. Until next time, keep cooking simply, keep planning wisely, and keep building a home that nourishes both heart and body.